The cruiser Zenith drifted silently above the swirling gust ring of Sector 7, its hull gleaming like a blade in the dim starlight. Inside, the atmosphere was antiseptic, efficient, humming with quiet authority. Captain Trell stood rigid before the central viewing port, his four-fingered hands clasped neatly behind his back, eyes locked on the foreign spec displayed on the hologrid. An unregistered vessel, human design. Slow, underpowered, civilian in every aspect, but also irregular. Telemetry confirms Earth origin. Class 3 civilian transport. No known military modifications, reported the sensor officer. Trell's facial ridges twitched faintly, a telltale sign of suspicion. Civilian, perhaps, but not benign. Unregistered vessels are in violation of Confederation Border Code 7.4. Flag it. The officer complied without hesitation. A soft trill echoed as the order propagated through the tactical system. The cruiser repositioned, casting a long shadow across the smaller ship's path. Moments later, the comms channel flared to life. A human voice crackled through, female, overly cheerful. "This is the Earth vessel Curiosity Star. We're on an educational excursion with students from Arkenfield Elementary. No weapons, no shields, just a science field trip, folks." Trell's jaw tightened. His internal translator parsed her tone as friendly and informal, which only deepened his irritation. It was a ruse, had to be. Humans rarely respected the borders. He had read the case files, always probing, always testing response thresholds. Education was the perfect cover. Teach your young how to spy, masked as stargazing. He turned sharply. Interdict the vessel. Prepare docking clamps. Initiate safe. Containment protocols. No risks tolerated. There was a pause, one heartbeat too long from the junior officer manning the boarding systems. "Sir, we're detaining school children?" Trell didn't flinch. "We're detaining unknown variables. Age is irrelevant. Containment will. Be humane." Orders were executed with cold precision. The human vessel, outmatched and compliant, allowed boarding. 3 Confederation security drones guided the group of startled, wide-eyed children, some clutching plush animals, others craning their necks in awe at the alien interior into containment chambers retrofitted for comfort. Oh, unmistakably secure. The 3 adult supervisors protested initially, but soon quieted under protocol citations and calmly delivered nutrition packets. Trell watched from the observation deck above, arms folded. "Log the detainees," he instructed. 27 juveniles, 3 adult educators. Civilian class. Species, Homo sapiens. Potential surveillance assets pending analysis. The observation officer hesitated. "Should we inform High Command?" Trell raised a brow. "And suggest I lack judgment in identifying espionage?" His tone was clipped, sharp. "No, I will compile a formal report for Fleet Command once containment is verified and their equipment inspected." He strode back to his quarters, the hum of Zenith's core reverberating faintly through the deck plating. He was proud of acting decisively, of following regulation to the letter, of protecting the Confederation from potential intelligence breaches. He sat before his console, composed, and began his log. Date entry, 416.45-143. Vessel Curiosity Star intercepted near Sector 7, disguised under educational cover. Crew consisted of juvenile humans and educators. All have been secured under Class B containment with full nutritional compliance. He paused briefly before adding his final thought. They're just small humans, not combatants. And with that, he closed the entry dot in the silence that followed. The hum of the ship no longer felt like a heartbeat. It felt like a warning. Fleet. Commander Vex leaned forward, the light from the holographic report flickering across his scaled skin. His secondary breathing membranes fluttered slightly. An involuntary tick had only surfaced when something felt ... off. Lines of tactical data, ship logs, and containment protocols scrolled down the display with crisp, bureaucratic clarity. But one entry froze him. Detainees, 27 human juveniles. 3 educators, held under Class B protocol. He tapped the display again, cycling through security footage fuzzy at first, then sharpening. Dozens of small, 2-legged primates varying in size, skin tones, and clothing. Some were crying softly. Others clung to older humans. One girl was coloring on the floor with a broken stylus. Vex's fingers twitched. "Get me Captain Trell." "Now," he ordered, voice low, almost growling. A comms officer glanced up. "Commander, he's currently engaged in," I said now. Seconds later, the image snapped into place. Trell's ridged face appeared, smug and composed, against the backdrop of the Xenarith's operations deck. "Commander Vex," Trell said crisply, nodding. "I assume you're contacting me in regard to the intercept." My report was submitted with full procedural justification. "Captain," Vex said slowly, each word ground like stone, "please tell me that. Your report about human juveniles in custody is a translation error." Trell's brow furrowed, confused. "Not at all. We apprehended an unregistered Earth vessel conducting unsanctioned traversal through Sector 7. The humans claimed it was a field trip, but clearly it was reconnaissance in disguise." Vex exhaled, long and audible, the air hissing through his teeth. "And so you seized them?" "As per Confederation Border Security Protocol 7.4, subsection CI, exercised caution. The children and their teachers have been given adequate food, water, and confinement." "Captain Trell," Vex interrupted, his voice flat but trembling beneath. "Release them. Immediately." "Sir?" Trell blinked, caught off guard. "But the regulations clearly—" "I don't care what the regulations clearly state." Vex's voice jumped in volume, startling the bridge staff around him. Even the seasoned communications officer flinched. Trell hesitated, more from the breach of protocol than understanding. "Commander, they are just small humans, not—" Vex went still. He repeated it aloud, slowly, as if tasting poison. "Just small humans?" The silence that followed was razor thin. "Captain Trell," Vex said, tone lowered again, dangerously controlled, "have you read nothing about Earth history? Do you understand? Nothing of human psychology? Of their breeding strategy? Of their emotional volatility?" Trell frowned. "I am aware humans are ... emotionally driven. But surely, I'm not finished." Vex stood, turning off the holoscreen with a swipe and walking toward the forward observation dome, his voice following like a tide. "Most species in the Confederation are re-strategists. High offspring count, low emotional investment. A loss is tolerable. It's biological calculus." He turned back toward the screen, eyes glinting. "Humans are not strategists. They are K-strategists. They produce few young. They invest their entire identity, culture, and physiology into them. Their entire species biology revolves around defending them." He paused. "And you took 27 of them." Trell swallowed. "They're safe. Their parents don't know that." Vex slammed his fist into the console beside him. "All they know is that an alien warship stole their children." He turned to his strategic officer. "Get me movement reports from human space. Long-range sensors." Immediately, the officer moved. Trell's voice returned, quieter now. Surely they wouldn't risk open conflict over something like Vex's gaze pierced the screen. "One child, Trell. One child was left behind 6 cycles ago during a diplomatic exchange on Proxima Station. Before we even filed the incident report, 3 unmarked human vessels breached their security grid disabled their systems, and extracted the child. Trell blinked. That never made the news. It was classified. The humans were gone before defensive protocols fully activated. They left a message behind. Vex tapped a key. A phrase appeared on the holodisplay, stark and cold. No one gets. Left behind. Return them, Vex growled. Now, with apologies. With gifts. With ceremonial respect. Trell didn't speak. You've started something we may not be able to contain. The comms officer turned pale. Commander ... We're picking up movement from the human fleet. 3 destroyer-class ships have altered course toward Trell's position. Their weapons are active. Vex turned back to the screen. Trell's proud composure had cracked. And Captain ... Vex's voice dropped, dark as deep space. ... You better pray they haven't already told the grandparents. Vex stood frozen, his secondary heart beating just a little faster. The lights of the command bridge pulsed calmly, unaware of the storm that brewed just beyond the stars. His breathing was slow, controlled, but inside him a furnace had ignited. Not of anger, but of fear. He turned toward his second officer. Project the human fleet's telemetry. I want full-spectrum surveillance. Thermal, psionic, if we have it. The screen at the front of the bridge shimmered to life. 3 massive vessels, dull gray with black hole striping, moved in eerie silence across the void. Each bore the Earth Alliance seal and emblem that meant little to most species. But to Vex, it meant something primal. Not dominance. Not conquest. Retribution. Double quotes 3 destroyers confirmed. His officer reported, his voice strained. All have altered their trajectory toward the Zenith. Long-range scans indicate their main batteries are powered. They've issued no threats only. A single broadcast. Play it. The comms filled with the low, clipped voice of a human officer. No background noise, no music. No threat. Just 10 syllables. Return our kids. No negotiation. 50 minutes. Silence fell over the bridge. Even? The younger officers instinctively understood. This was not a declaration of war. This was a promise. The kind a species makes when it doesn't care about consequences. Only about rescue. Vex dismissed the broadcast and turned to his cultural liaison, a young Yerin with trembling tendrils. Pull up every entry we have on human familial behavior. Every report, anecdote, and incident related to juveniles. Now. She nodded and began typing frantically. Commander, their historical data is vast. It'll take a moment to narrow by threat response filters. Then start with this one, Vex said, pulling up a file from his private archive. It flickered to life in the center of the bridge. Psychological analysis. Human parental response. Case 723. A closing parenthesis. Images and footage played. Grainy, decades-old recordings. A human father physically lifted a 3-ton vehicle off. His pinned child, his bones shattered in the process. A mother threw herself in front of a plasma bolt to shield her daughter during a rebel attack, no hesitation. No armor. A report from a war zone. A human village, upon hearing that a child had been abducted by raiders, launched a coordinated assault with kitchen tools, gardening blades, and homemade explosives. They suffered 72% casualties. They recovered the child. Vex let the room absorb it. These are not isolated events, he said, voice low. This is species doctrine. This is programmed into their instincts. Humans do not hesitate when it comes to their young. They do not ask. They do not wait. They act. He turned to Trell's hovering transmission, the captain now visibly rattled. And you've taken 27 of them. Trell tried to rally his pride. They're safe. They're unharmed. I fed them and placed them in containment designed. For comfort, Vex cut him off with a glare. Containment? Comfort means nothing to a human parent who only sees a closed door and no child on the other side. Another officer turned. Commander, the human flagship just initiated something called Operation Ember Cradle. Vex froze. His blood chilled. That can't be right. That's a myth. It's in our own redacted files, sir. Code Ember. Cradle. The immediate mobilization of all family-assigned Special Forces teams for deep retrieval. No diplomacy. No warning. They will bypass orbital defenses, infiltrate, extract, eliminate all who resist. He turned back to Trell's feed. Trell, he said softly now, you don't understand. You think they're just combatants wearing emotional masks. But with humans, emotion is the weapon. Logic folds beneath it. Even their most advanced war doctrines bend to protect the young. I had no idea. Trell whispered. Vex leaned in. Then let me be very clear. You are not facing a political incident. You are not facing a disciplinary hearing. You are facing the full, uncontrolled wrath of the species that would tear down suns. To get its children back. Trell's screen flickered as alarms began to blare on his end-boarding preparations. Plasma charge buildups, defensive shields powering up. A crewman shouted in the background. Unmarked human dropships exiting FTL Shadow. They're deploying microwarp skips. And then, for the first time, Trell's voice cracked. Commander, what do I do? Vex inhaled slowly. You apologize. You return every child with a gift in hand, a bowed head, and a trembling voice. You activate every diplomatic protocol and every cultural courtesy we've ever studied. You treat those children not as detainees, not even as guests. Treat them as ambassadors. Then you pray that it's enough. Trell stood there, stunned. And, Trell, Vex said finally, voice barely audible now, if even one of them is bruised, they won't be coming for just you. They'll be coming for us all. The silence on the bridge of the Zenareth was suffocating. Red indicator lights pulsed. Across every station, defensive arrays buzzed with latent energy, caught between activation protocols and override commands. Trell stood motionless at the center of the chaos, no longer the confident officer who had spoken in clipped regulations, but a man suddenly, aware he had awakened something far beyond his grasp. On the upper-level holodisplay, the human ships loomed closer. They made no threats, no ultimatums. Only a singular command had been issued: return our kids. And yet the menace in that stillness felt heavier than an entire fleet. Trell's second-in-command approached, her voice brittle. Captain, one of the human destroyers is now within orbital range. It's the Mistral, flagship of Earth's Northern Strategic Command. Trell's heart sank. The Mistral wasn't just a warship, it was a ghost story. A vessel rumored to have extracted civilians from behind active war zones without ever being detected. Intelligence had speculated its hull was embedded with stealth. Alloys humans hadn't shared with the Confederation. Unconfirmed, until now. The comms officer looked up. Incoming transmission from the Mistral. Priority override. Trell blinked. Put it through. The lights dimmed slightly, and the image flickered into focus. She was a woman, human, pale skin, short black hair, uniform black as midnight with a silver badge. Her eyes, however, were what rooted Trell to the floor. They were calm, cold, not angry. Just resolved. Captain Trell of the Confederation cruiser Zenareth, she said without preamble. I am Admiral Wren. You have possession of 27 minor citizens of the Human Alliance. You have 44 minutes remaining. Trell tried to regain his posture. Admiral Wren, allow me to explain. I didn't request explanation. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I require resolution. The quiet between them stretched until Trell felt like the silence itself would crack him. Open. We've ensured their safety. They're receiving food, clean air, filtered water. They've not been harmed. You have contained them, she said, as if delivering a sentence. That alone is a provocation. Trell's mouth opened, then closed. She leaned in slightly. Let me be perfectly clear. If those children are not back aboard their original vessel, unharmed, smiling, and holding diplomatic apology tokens in their hands within the next 44 minutes, there won't be enough of your cruiser left to discipline. She said it without emotion, without heat, just certainty. The feed cut out. The bridge lights returned to normal, but no one moved. The officers all looked to Trellsung for reassurance, others for orders. He had neither. From his command panel, another ping arrived. Trell turned to see Vex's face appear once again, grim and shadowed. You saw the transmission? Vex asked. Trell nodded mutely. She is not bluffing, Vex said. Human admirals rarely speak in such calm tones, unless the decision to act has already been made. This is their grace period, Trell, their moment of mercy. They would risk war for children? Trell asked, almost to himself. They wouldn't see it that way, Vex answered. They would see it as war being risked by you. Because, from their perspective, you already started it. You crossed a line so ancient and sacred to them that words fail. Trell stood, hands trembling slightly now. I'll begin the release protocols. Vex didn't look relieved. Only weary. Do more than that, he said. Prepare ceremonial gifts, age-appropriate, simple things, sweet things, soft colors. Return the teachers first. Allow them to. Explain the process to the children. Then escort each child by name. Make eye contact. Bow slowly. Let them see your hands are empty. Trell hesitated. They're children. You expect them to understand diplomatic? I don't expect the children to understand, Vex said. I expect the adults watching them to remember everything, every blink, every smile, every mistake. He leaned closer into the transmission field, because one of those children may grow up to be a human fleet captain someday. And if they remember fear or cruelty from this day, then it will not be just you who pays for it. Another officer on Zenarith called out from her console. Captain, we're detecting atmospheric microdistortions along our hull-likely probes. They're scanning for ingress points. They're preparing insertion, Vex said. Final stage. They'll breach without firing a shot if they don't get what they want. Trell felt like the walls were closing in. He slammed the intercom control. All decks, initiate Protocol 5. Hostile detention release. Prepare apology kits. Route teacher. Release through Bay 2. Can someone find me soft-colored confections? I don't care if we have to synthesize candy out of coolant. Get it done. The crew scrambled Dot behind him. Vex's image lingered a moment longer. May the stars forgive your ignorance, Vex said Dot, then he disconnected, leaving Trell alone on the bridge, staring at a countdown timer that now blinked mercilessly. At the bottom of the screen, 0 hours 42 minutes and 3 seconds. Ticking, 0 hours 41 minutes and 59 seconds. Captain Trell stared at the countdown in the corner of the tactical display. Each second was a hammer blow against his spine, every flickering digit a reminder of what he'd done, and what might come if he failed to make it right. Begin teacher extraction, he barked. Escort them gently. No armor, no drones. Use the biohumanoid diplomatic staff, smaller stature, less threatening optics. Keep your hands visible at all times. His bridge officers scrambled. The illusion of control was slipping fast, but Trell still clung to the one thing he understood. Procedure. Protocol. If he just followed the right steps, surely he could contain this. Apology kits assembled, a young officer reported. Gift selections include soft-shelled confections, thermal plush replicates of Earth fauna, and light reactive comfort wraps calibrated to pastel tones. Distribute according to age. Scans. Pair each child with a named offering. Smile. He paused, then added, whatever passes for a smile. Practice it first if you must. Trell stood rigid as he watched the 3 human educators escorted back to the Curiosity Star. They looked shaken but unharmed. One of them, an older male with gray hair and worry lines etched into his face-locked eyes with Trell as he passed. He didn't speak. He didn't shout. He just stared, and it made Trell feel smaller than he had ever felt in his life. 0 hours 34 minutes and 20 seconds. On the bridge of the Mistral, Admiral Wren watched the returns with surgical precision. Every heartbeat of data streamed across her console. Thermal imaging of the Zenith, radio frequency shifts, hull vibrations, each one signaling that her message had landed. Her voice was calm when she spoke, yet every syllable landed like a blade. Deploy Halo teams. Stealth formation. Do not board unless signaled. Maintain 0 emissions. Be ready to move at my mark. Her lieutenant gave a short nod. Understood. I am. Remind them of the mission parameters, Wren said. Non-lethal. Non-confrontational. Extraction only. Unless the children are harmed. The word unless held the weight of extinction. Do you think they'll comply? Her executive officer asked quietly. Wren's eyes didn't leave the screen. They always do. Just before they realized we weren't bluffing. 0 hours 28 minutes and 10 seconds. On Zenith, the first children were being guided back to their vessel. They clutched pastel gift bags and stuffed creatures. Some looked confused. A few were crying, though the tears had slowed. The adult educators met them at the threshold, whispering reassurances. They hugged tightly, too tightly. And when one of the girls saw her teacher, she broke free from the escort and sprinted into his arms. That moment recorded by 3 different external sensors was transmitted across the Confederation fleet. It would later become mandatory viewing during cultural sensitivity training. Trell watched it from his command dais. He said nothing, but something inside him cracked open. These weren't assets, weren't security risks, weren't even just children. They were everything to someone. 54 someones minimum. And behind each of those, a civilization that refused to let go. Captain, his comms officer said. Incoming transmission from the human flagship. Trell inhaled deeply, then nodded, put it through. Admiral Wren reappeared, unchanged, unblinking. We are receiving the children, she said. Your clock runs until the last one is aboard. We are complying fully, Trell replied, his voice low. Please accept our sincerest apologies. The children will receive ceremonial compensation, and the teachers will be delivered a formal statement of regret, authored by myself and the Confederation Legal Council. Wren's expression didn't change. Good. She leaned in slightly, her voice soft, but somehow even more chilling in its gentleness. Because let me explain something to you, Captain Trell. The humans you took, they're not just citizens, not just children. They're someone's entire world. Do you understand that? Trell nodded slowly. I do now. No, you don't, she said. But you will. The screen went dark. 0 hours 11 minutes and 48 seconds. The last of the children stepped across the docking threshold, clutching a glowing jelly animal replica. A boy, no older than 6 Earth years, turned to look at the alien escort behind him. His eyes were red, but he bowed awkwardly, just as he had been taught. The diplomatic officer bowed back lower this time. Trell watched it in silence, hands folded behind him. Status? He asked without turning. All 27 accounted for, no injuries. Emotional trauma logged as minimal to moderate. The Curiosity Star has resealed its boarding ring and returned to standby drift. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. The timer expired. The Mistral didn't move. Neither did the destroyers. They held position for 12 more hours. No transmissions. No threats. No departure clearance requests. Just presence. When they finally turned and vanished into subspace, they didn't even say goodbye. Trell sat alone in his quarters that night. The lights dimmed. He opened the official log and added one final line before submitting the incident to High Command. Let it be recorded. Humans are not to be provoked where their children are concerned. Not ever. He stared at the screen and added a private note, one the computer wouldn't send. I've seen war. I've studied conquest. But today, I saw something far more terrifying than any battle fleet. A species that loves with such violence. Even death is afraid to interfere. And then he closed the terminal. The sunless void outside the zenith remained deceptively still, a curtain drawn over the chaos, barely averted. Captain Trell stood on the observation deck, flanked by silent officers who no longer looked at him. With certainty, but with the cautious respect reserved for those who had survived an execution that never arrived. Trell wasn't sure he deserved it. Below. Cargo drones carried away the remnants of the Apology kit's empty gift boxes, half-melted sweets, and a plush toy shaped like a winged earth creature left behind by a girl too overwhelmed to hold it. The item had been tagged and sealed. High Command would want to analyze the interaction. Trell didn't have the heart to do it himself. His communicator chirped. Commander Vex on secure channel. He nodded. Route to my office. Inside the privacy of his command chamber, the display lit up with Vex's weary face. No outrage. No lectures. Just the tired gaze of a superior who had spent the last 12 hours hoping silence from the human fleet meant forgiveness, not calculation. The humans are gone, Vex said. I know. They didn't send the final message. I know that too. Which means, Vex added softly, they're not finished with us. Not yet. Trell said nothing. You'll be reassigned, Vex continued. Effective immediately. The Council wants optics to show swift response. You're to report to Confederation headquarters on Maleth Prime. That's command. Trell swallowed. That, like Ash, understood. You'll be tasked with drafting new interspecies engagement protocols, Vex added. Specifically ones dealing with juvenile interactions. It's not a punishment. It feels like one. Vex's expression softened. It should. The silence hung heavy. You've seen what few in our ranks ever lived to see, Trell. A truth that defies doctrine. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't send war demands. And yet, he trailed off, looking away for a moment. And yet, Trell said quietly, I've never been more afraid. Vex nodded slowly. You saw the core of their power. Not in their ships, not in their weapons, in their love. It is not gentle. It is not poetic. It is violent and absolute. Trell looked down, whispering, They would have burned us alive. No, Vex corrected. They would have burned everything we ever touched, and felt justified. He sighed. There's a reason we've always kept humanity at arm's length. It's not their aggression we fear. It's what provokes it. The screen dimmed and went black. Later that cycle, Trell stood before his assembled bridge crew one last time. He didn't give a speech. There were no medals, no farewell fanfare. He handed off command to his replacement, an officer with sharper credentials and colder eyes. As Trell walked out of the command deck for the last time, his data tablet pinged with an alert. One unread message. Not from the Confederation. Not from Vex. It was routed through 5 encrypted relays, tagged with civilian formatting. Origin. Earth. He hesitated, then opened it. It was a video. A girl, maybe 8 years old, with curly black hair and a pink shirt, stared into the camera. Her voice was soft. Shy. Hi, I'm Molly. I just wanted to say thanks to the alien with the long sleeves who gave me the glowing bear. I named him Starblip. I was scared at first, but I think you were trying to be nice. So, it's okay. Now, she smiled. The message ended. Trell stood motionless, staring at the frozen screen. It was the first time anyone from Earth had responded since the incident. And it wasn't an admiral, a soldier, or a government dot. It was a child. A few lines of text followed beneath the video. This message was approved by the Earth Alliance Family Recovery Bureau. No further action required. We remember kindness. So do our children. Trell exhaled shaky, uneven. Not forgiveness. Not quite, but something close enough to hold on to. He turned toward the transport shuttle waiting in the bay, the plush toy still clutched under his arm. He didn't know why he had brought it, only that it felt wrong to leave it behind, because from now on, everything involving humans would be different. And as the door closed behind him, across the entire Confederation, an unspoken rule began. To settle into the minds of captains, diplomats, and strategists alike, if humans and their children are involved, proceed with extreme caution. Or better yet, don't proceed at all. 12 standard cycles passed. The Confederation never issued a public statement. The incident was quietly classified, buried beneath bureaucratic layers and ongoing cultural analysis reports. But rumors had already escaped containment whispers. It traveled faster than light. Among the outer systems, it became known simply as the silence of Sector 7. No battles. No treaties. Just ... fear and retreat. Across dozens of planets, military academies adjusted their training simulations. Diplomatic outreach officers underwent mandatory Earth cultural empathy modules. For the first time, alien officers were instructed in the meaning of a PTA meeting, parental consent, and perhaps most importantly, Mama Bear Syndrome. At high command, Fleet Commander Vex stood before the Grand Strategium, delivering the most sobering presentation of his career. No one interrupted him, not once. The lesson is not tactical, he concluded. It is existential. We believed. The humans were governed by logic, military code, or diplomacy. But their primary law, their sacred instinct, is parenthood. Not species loyalty. Not even survival. Parenthood. It overrides fear. It overrides treaties. It overrides death. He paused, letting that truth hang in the oxygen-rich chamber. They mobilized 3 destroyers, Vex continued. Not to intimidate us, but to prevent themselves from doing worse. Their silence was not peace. It was the final breath they were willing to give us before fire. The High Executor blinked. They didn't retaliate. No, Vex said, because we gave the children back, in time, with gifts, with bowed heads. A silent nod passed between the assembled commanders. After the meeting, Vex stepped into the corridor and found a sealed envelope waiting in his private come-shoot-an. Ancient human tradition, now simulated through encrypted delivery. He opened it. Inside was a photo. A human child, Molly. The girl from the message stood grinning next to a large teddy bear-shaped bioluminescent plush, Starblip, taped, too. The corner of the photo was a drawing done in crayon, messy and colorful. It showed a large blue-skinned alien with long sleeves standing next to a small human girl. Above it, in crooked English letters, "Thank you for being kind. You're not scary anymore." There was no signature. There didn't need to be. Vex stared at it for a long moment, then tucked it into the inside lining of his uniform. He said nothing to anyone about it. Far from command halls and battle fleets, Captain Trell sat behind a glass desk in a sterile office on Nalith Prime. He had been given a title, Junior Protocol Architect, Human Engagement Sub-Directive. The name was long, the meaning simple. He was the one writing the rulebook now. He spent his days crafting flowcharts and ceremonial phrases, debating the correct pastel shades for age-specific offerings, and studying human fairy tales for symbolic resonance. It was humiliating work, at first, until, one day, a junior analyst forwarded him a message flagged Level Green, Civilian. It was from the Earth Alliance Office of Diplomatic Recovery. They had begun issuing formal rating scores for post-incident. Apology procedures. Trell's report had received a 7.6 out of 10. Below it, someone had typed a note. Your captain bowed lower than the minimum requirement. Our analysts noticed. Thank you. Trell reread that line 3 times. Then, for the first time since his reassignment, he smiled. Across Confederation space, the incident shifted from whispered rumor to unspoken law. Captains who had never met a human began reciting the phrase like a sacred mantra. If it involves human children, walk away. And in the outer fringe systems, where laws bend and smugglers test the edges of decency, new graffiti began to appear on outpost walls and cargo docks. Return our kids' nitrogen monoxide warnings, given only consequences. None dared paint over them. Because everyone knew. The war that almost happened wasn't prevented by politics or power. It was prevented by a deadline, by a child's drawing, by a quiet, seething love so absolute it could command fleets without a single word. And though Earth never spoke of it publicly, the galaxy never forgot. 12 hours after the human ships disappeared into subspace, the Zenith remained on standby, silent, low-powered, its crew subdued. The stars beyond her viewport burned as they always had, but something had shifted. Not in the stars, not in the galaxy, not in the minds of everyone who had watched those children step off their warship, clutching glowing bears and pastel bundles with earth-bright eyes. Captain Trell, no longer a captain, sat in a private chamber on Maleth Prime, still in uniform, but without a command. The weight of his mistake pressed on him not as a punishment, but as a constant presence. Something lived in his chest now. A memory, not just of what had happened, but what could have. He opened his personal terminal to finalize the draft of a new directive titled Interspecies Engagement Amendment 91F, Juvenile Human Encounter Protocol. The language was careful, diplomatic, but his fingers hesitated. Before closing the document, something was missing. He tapped the cursor to the end of the final paragraph and added a single unofficial note, written not as a directive, but as a warning. When you see a human child, do not see vulnerability, do not see innocence. See the full weight of a civilization standing behind them, armed with love, rage, and memory. Above all else, do not touch what they protect. They do not forgive easily, and they do not forget at all. He didn't sign his name. He didn't need to. 6 weeks later, aboard the Confederation diplomatic station Arvix 9, an unregistered courier drone arrived. No sender ID, no encryption. But its transmission bore the distinct rhythm of a human voice file compressed and encoded with Earth-based emotional cadence algorithms. The transmission was short, just 3 seconds long. Played once, automatically, across the diplomatic broadcast channels of every confederation. Embassy within 200 light years. A child's voice, soft and clear. Thank you for giving us back. That was all. But to those who had been there, on the bridge of Zenith, in the command room of Mistral, or seated in the echoing silence of Maleth Prime, it was more than enough, because it wasn't just thanks. It was recognition. A message from a people who chose restraint, who chose to walk away from vengeance, even when the fire had already been lit. 3 cycles later, during a formal peace summit between the Earth Alliance and the Confederation, a peculiar detail sparked whispers. Each Earth ambassador in attendance carried no visible weapon. No armed escort. No warship in orbit. but positioned around the perimeter of the grand hall scattered with suspicious randomness were 27 children, laughing, playing, sometimes sleeping. One was drawing on the floor with crayons when a Confederation delegate leaned toward Earth's lead diplomat, asking softly, "Why bring children?" The human simply smiled. "They're not here for protection," he said. "They are the protection." The alien delegate tilted his head in confusion. The human added gently, "You see diplomats, but the galaxy sees a reminder." And suddenly it became clear. This was not a show of vulnerability. It was a warning. In time, the full truth of Sector 7 would pass into legend. Future generations would embellish the tale, some claiming the humans had armed the children, others insisting psychic retaliation was narrowly avoided by a single teddy bear hug. But those who had read the reports, who had been present in the command rooms and shadowed corridors, knew the truth was simpler. The humans had not retaliated because they didn't have to. Their silence had been loud enough. Their love had been violent enough. And from that day forward, across every quadrant, among every race, a new unofficial law was burned into the stars. If you see a human child, stand down. If you take a human child, run, because when it comes to their young, humans never bluff, and they never, ever come alone.